Good morning, Dr. Brad.
Hello,
You're on
Curt.
the top screen today, so I might be looking up a little bit. Sorry.
I'm on the
I'll
screen.
fix that in a moment. But this is Hi, hello, everyone. It's Saturday, September 7th. Brad and I are having our usual chat before our working session. Brad has been talking about how he's been writing long form posts. I'm kind of blown away by them, and you seem to be fulfilled by them. You like what you're able to say in them. I think they're fantastic. We were talking about how we all sound the same. That was from talking to Rudyard, my friend. What if I this? And well, he says, Brad said, well, it's because we've systematized everything, So when you systematize everything, it's going to sound the same, right? I mean, but then you made an observation I thought was pretty fascinating, which is that you said, how did
That Rudyard uses language that we would call inflationary logics language.
he writes artistic. He writes a communication form and a rewrite mathematics. But I don't want that was the insight I was looking for. He said, look for the ternary logic in any human interaction that will reveal the first principles as the primary cause of that behavior.
Yep.
And I thought that was really great, and it made me think, which is why I hit the record button. I have to put you down.
Like, oh,
I can't keep looking up at the sky. It's bothering me. Right. So it made me think a minute. Is it? I put a lot of effort into the step-by-step of disambiguation, right? Into a system of measurement. But I haven't put much effort into how to use the first principles. And you just described it, which is right. There's the method of constructing language, but then there's the method of applying the science, right?
That's right.
And so I thought that you did a good job. So maybe that's one of the many things that's like, well, it's obvious, right? But it's not.
It's just
Well, it's
just
my
like
form of being stupid.
it is just yeah. Kurt's form of being stupid is he jumped to the next step and didn't show his work. It's like, and all the other kids are like going, well, we disappeared. Where'd he go?
Sorry, apologies.
And it's okay though, but it didn't strike me as obvious but it's like systematically when we were, because Martin posted something about the Frankfurt School as a response to one of my posts today. And I'm like, let's look at the operation of that over time in the ternary logic. And then it reveals the first principles. Like, what's the polarity at work? And then what's the equilibration of it?
Mm-hmm. So it's curious. So the way I used to describe it is we have the first principles, right? You and I are basically trying to get that down to we're doing a good job, I think, getting that down to a list that people can sort of keep in their heads, right? Because it isn't that many things, right? It's not that many first principles. I was just trying to think what gets complicated. There's certain things like the precision of sex differences is you gotta that takes some work, but otherwise the first principles aren't. There's only 20 some odd of them, right? I mean, I don't know, it's that many. And so what I just do is I literally subconsciously, because I don't have to think about it anymore, I just say, okay, which one of these fits? Right? What do I see here? Right? And then I say, okay, underneath that, which one of these fits? And underneath that one, it's just like geometry. Like, how do I make a triangle out of this so I can measure it? Right? I mean, it's exactly the same process. So I don't know. I was kind of wondering how you approached it when you see, or do you just intuit which one is there?
Well, what I did in this case was the Frankfurt School.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it changed it changed its character from being a German school to being an American school.
Yes.
So it underwent a state change.
Yes.
And this state change was operationalized by some ternary logic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what was the ternary logic? And it's like, well, the masculine Germans, not the Nazis, said we're via negativa on you. You're not going to be here. And so the feminine Frankfurt School was pushed, and the state change was facilitated by the Rockefellers, which provided the financing for the operation. And it's like it was going to get via negativa, so it just got moved and changed its state to conform to a different state.
Right, but so they switched from class warfare to race warfare because they could foment class warfare in Germany.
Yeah, they it's funny the stories you hear about them when they arrived here, and they're like, "This isn't going to work at all."
No. It's not like they didn't, it's like not like it's some hidden conspiracy. They were just openly discussing it, right? It's not like this, it's like that's a conspiracy. What is a conspiracy theory? They wrote down what they were conspiring to do. It's not a theory, right? It's what they said they were going to do, what they did.
Doesn't qualify as a conspiracy because it's not secret, right?
A secret, right?
And it's like
that's the whole thing is a conspiracy theory. It has to be secret, but a conspiracy doesn't. It's like that. We've had this discussion a bunch of times. We have an open closed conspiracy, which we call a conspiracy, and an open conspiracy, right? I mean, they're definitely conspiring together.
Yes.
But the virtue of it's like security through obscurity. In other words, there's a principle in like passwords, right?
Right.
Passwords aren't that really secure. They're secure only because they're secret, right? But then you get into things like, well, there's certain kinds of security that are used that aren't, it's just like it's just too hard to find it. So like access to directories and things like that. Right. Well, if you have no way to find something, it's security through obscurity. And so in their case, their security is based on their obscurity, and right. It's partly based on the obscurity of their language.
Well, there's also something to nobody will believe that they will be able to pull off the craziness that they're thinking.
Right, it's unbelievable they'd be able to pull it off, but they did.
They did it.
We keep saying, you know what? This is one of the things that it's not us, it's women. I keep saying that over again. Nobody likes it when I make that point.
Okay, let's discuss that.
Because it's like Americans are. No, American women are the problem. It's not American men would all vote the correct way, but it's American women. Is it American universities? No, it's women in American universities and the people who sell the nonsense to women. If you took the women out of the universities, they would look like the universities used to look like. So the problem is, you keep saying it's Western culture. It's Western women, right? And so that's so incredibly inflammatory. You just can't talk about it. But it's actually the reason.
Wait, but you can. I cannot, but you certainly can, because you did. I saw you.
Well, I mean, I don't even, I don't beat that drum very hard. That's like, I mean, it's like
the third rail, buddy.
It's just so true, though. I mean, what are you going to do? It's just the evidence is overwhelming. If you take the guys who play the feminine card, they're all broken. I mean, there's something wrong with them, right?
Right. So let's look at the bell curve distributions between men and women.
Yeah.
The women are more similar to one another, so a taller bell-shaped distribution, and the men are less similar, so a shorter, wider, and the edge of the feminine mentality of the men extends beyond that of the women.
Correct.
And it's like,
why is that difficult to understand that there's going to be men who are exception at the feminine mentality, right? I mean, it's not
really controversial.
It's not controversial. I mean, they're just going to be better. So that's why the men largely come up with all the nonsense, but the women are the market for the product, right? I mean, so it's like, what's wrong with Western culture? What's wrong with Western women? Or frankly, what's wrong with Western men tolerating this nonsense from Western women? I mean, it's just this whole individual rights thing just went out of hand.
There's a proximity issue there. it's like tolerating stuff from Western women. It's like you're a regular guy living in America and you get an American girl and there's no other girls.
Yes.
And it's like there's a normalcy bias associated with the fact that their women are crazy and this is what there is. It's what the market has to offer. So it's like, what are you gonna do? You want a girl or no girl? It's like, weigh it out and then make a deal. And it's like, okay, doesn't mean they have to like the deal. And I think there's evidence that they're increasingly discontented.
Well, of course. I mean, everybody's increasingly discontented. I just saw that for some reason in my feed popped up this morning. It was like 15 minutes ago. Is this girl walking through the airport in Thailand and saying, it's crazy. Half of the couples here are white men with Asian women. Right. And going through the airport. Well, of course. I mean, it's just like men aren't complicated. They want feminine women. They don't want somebody who's going to argue with them. They don't want a boss bitch. They don't want to compromise. Men want to do their thing and you do your thing. And together we're great. But if we have to fucking compete over everything or argue over things, it's just too much work. It's just too much work. Right. So what's that mean?
I'm feeling it.
Okay. And I'm not like that, right? Because I don't have the problems the average guy has, right? So it doesn't.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't bother me, but I can see being the average guy would drive him fucking nuts. So, I mean, I kind of need the woman that's got willpower because otherwise I'll steamroll her, and then she's unhappy and I'm unhappy because, So I prefer the strong woman, but I don't think that's. Even if I prefer strong women, I want the feminine. Right? I mean, most guys, I keep telling you, tell the women, they go through their thing and they're bringing to the table. The only thing we care about is femininity, how feminine it is.
So let's go over this bell curve distribution again, because the most masculine women are not as masculine as masculine men.
That's right.
And the most feminine men are more feminine than the most feminine women.
In cognition, yes.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
Yep.
And it's like, that's not hard to grasp.
Yeah, especially when you start out with, it's not quite true, but it's close to true, is the prototype human is female.
Right.
That's and so what is a male? It's a hyper exaggerated female. Right. So we too
that's it. Smash the bell curve and stretch it out.
Right. That's what you do. And so you exaggerate all the features, and most of it's mass, right? Body mass and size. You exaggerate all the features, so you make a wider distribution. So you're going to get a more, and that's why the Y chromosome is where all evolution happens, right? I mean, you capture it in the males because the females remain relatively constant. The experiments are being done by the males. I mean,
it's just like this. This lends itself to the disposability of the males.
Oh, I mean, it's true.
It's just the experimental templates. Like a lot of them are no good.
I wonder why there's a slight bias in the reproduction of males, and it's probably pretty simple. It's just that you need to have more of them because more of them die, right? I mean,
because they do stupid stuff.
Well. Women are not trying to fight the world, right? The men fight the world for the women.
Yes.
Right? And so men absorb all the cells.
Not all of them.
Not all of them, but I mean, in general, the male.
The ones that the women find useful.
You must have had your Wheaties this morning. Anyway.
Like that, because you think it's like this. You think about this, these extremely feminine men. There's no utility to the females to these guys at all. It's like you're saying you're a woman and I'm not. It's like, what the hell is this?
What you're getting with a it's kind of funny because of course girls follow mean girls, right? So there's a tendency for girls to follow mean girls.
Mean girls, right?
Right. And so you have men and they can do all the stuff that mean girls do without being mean girls. So it's sort of like why, at least I know I'm like this, is that it's always good to have some gay friends so you know how to dress properly. Yeah,
just to get a point or two.
right. You can go to him and say, you can go to him and you can ask him, well, what the hell is this woman thinking? And he'll tell you. You know what I mean? They're just useful to have a gay friend, a couple of gay friends. You got to tell them, I don't want any part of your party, but I'm glad you're supplying value. I had this gay guy I used to go to I was a dress up a lot when I was trying, back in the 80s, was the longer hair, the ponytail, the earring thing, and I thought I was a hot shit. So, I would go to Filene's and there was this amazing gay guy there. And it's like, if he said you should wear it, you should wear it, right? I mean, it doesn't matter what if it's the right shirt and the right tie, and
right.
if he said so, you should just listen. And he would say, I would always get I know you don't like this to hear this from me, but you really need to wear a t-shirt, an undershirt.
It's just unsolicited good advice.
Well, it's like, but you want that,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, like
Nothing wrong with it.
Filene's Boston, right? And it was a great month. There was another guy in Seattle who's in the men's department in Seattle. And if I was wearing something, I walked into a jacket once, and it must have been started to get. I bet you said it to dry cleaners too many times. Is you need to throw that in the trash as soon as you leave here. Come here, we're gonna get you another jacket. I fucking love those guys, right? So in any event, it's the same thing for the feminine, is that you're trying to make the point about, which is a really important one, which is that of course you're going to get male elites in the female distribution, right? Because of the wider curve, you're going to get.
I know. I also point out that each civilization will have a different location of those curves.
Correct.
And then they may not be much different, but they're different.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all. End of transmission.
Anyway, so I wanted to just pull out that we probably need to, when we get to the grammars, we're going to have to, we'll get to the method rather, because the method is prior to the grammars. We're gonna have to put some time into just how to do this. Matter of fact, if we did just a video on that, I wonder how much easier our work would be for people to understand. It's like one of those things that's so, I'm like, well, it's obvious. Why do I gotta talk?
Not that obvious.
It's not that fucking obvious.
Not that obvious.
It's like why can't you understand? It's like Martin said, I want some clarification on evolutionary computation. I'm like, I don't know how to, what? What is it? How is that hard? Why is that hard? Right?
How do you simplify that?
I mean, so the method I thought was interesting because you're once you get down into what language consists of, it's so stupidly systematic. Right?
This is what's interesting to me, because I was like watching you argue with that fellow yesterday, or you were egging him on, and it was irritating to me. I just bailed out of the conversation because I couldn't even stand to listen to him type, because it was that annoying to me. Just his responses were obnoxious.
Well, it's because he actually he has a profound amount of confidence.
Yes,
but he doesn't understand he doesn't even understand what he's saying. Now, it's not that he doesn't understand about mathematics; is that he can't understand that mathematics is a reductive frame of reference that has a limited, and he just ignored every time I said, well, what is the limit of that method? And then he keeps going into it, and I'm like, but we don't have, so.
Oh, then he starts calling you names and stuff, and I'm like, oh my Lord.
Well, he's just a dude. He does what people always do. Is that I have to find a protocol where I can talk to the other person, where I can lead them down the path so they understand. But if that person isn't seeking to understand, they're seeking to disagree, then you can't actually get a protocol.
They won't approach that. They won't hit it.
So I can't find so once there, if you can't get to some place where you have a mutual understanding, you can't lead the person incrementally down the path to understanding. And so I tried a bunch of ways there, but it became clear he was just being childish.
Obtuse, right?
And the reason is he's malinvested in his single domain, which you find all the time, right? Is that
he's one of the tombstones in the way of the paradigm shift.
right? And it's understandable when you build your whole self-worth on a thing like chess, right? I mean,
right,
or mathematics, right? Right. Math is a really difficult topic that can get very sophisticated, but it's mostly because it's goofy language. It's not operational language describing work.
Right. Oh yeah, now that's what I found about it. That fellow, he's like talking in some crazy obscure language. I'm like, okay, I don't know.
It's not to me, it wasn't obscure, but I could make him he would use terms that were we would call fuzzy or
Yes.
inflationary or analogical, and so there was no way to get him to operationalize a term so that I could get him back to a position that we could build from, because he was just seeking to be stubborn and disagree. And like you're I know you chopped out of it, but it was one of those questions where I want to see. I'm just curious if I can make, because I was having a bad day, honestly, so I wanted something else to do. So I just looked at it. I was like, oh, I can amuse myself with this. This is a puzzle I can play with for a while, and I'll see if I can get there with a guy. And of course, he just starts insulting me and stuff, and I'm like, you just can't do it. I mean, I don't. It's not.
No, so I asked Eric. I asked Eric because Eric was participating in that, and I thought that was interesting. I said, I wonder what Curt learned. Because I'm like, I know Curt's not really. Curt is trying to learn something here, and it's like he's plugging it in, and it's in his computer somewhere, and he's got an answer that he came up with, and it's just a data point, like a lone data point, maybe on a graph that is just starting.
Well, it's what it is that there's a category of people in math that's like mastered chess because they've done it a lot. But they're actually not smart. Right? They were good enough at it that they got good at it. Then there's people who can generalize. They can understand, you can give them an underlying structure and they can see the pattern that you're talking about. You can operationalize it. And fortunately or unfortunately, it appears like you need to study a little philosophy to be able to do that.
Okay, so they need a more inflated set of logics, languages, and grammars to function.
I'm going to say that they have found a frame that fits that they can keep applying. But if you go into philosophy, what it teaches you is it actually teaches you how all the ways people think stupid things. Right. And so it's like, even though it's supposed to be justificationary, because it's mostly false, what you learn from the study of philosophy is just how easy it is to be wrong. Right, and how important your language is. And so it's kind of useful. Like when I tell people, what I really care about when I find people is, have you studied the philosophy of science? Because most science is required to have at least an introductory course in the philosophy of science, right? Which is basically scientific epistemology. And at that point, you can sort of talk to someone, but because they have at least the understanding that there's ways to rotate the shape, like just like he was talking about in mathematics. You can rotate a shape into dimensions, you can make projections, or like Michael was saying, you can make transformations, right? Well, if you study a little philosophy, you can do that. I prefer people studied analytic philosophy or the philosophy science, not continental philosophy, but in general, you could get these ideas across because they're used to thinking about ways of thinking. Does that make sense?
Yes. They're
used to thinking about frames of thinking. So when you find somebody in mathematics in particular, because they think it's the gold standard, which annoys the hell out of them that computer science is now the gold standard and mathematics isn't, which is fucking hysterical if you ask me. Because what's happened is that all the goofy stuff they had to do in mathematics is to basically find ways of allowing the human mind to represent something that could be procedurally done by human mind, and those syntax, like matrices and stuff like that. But you don't have to do that in computer science. You just diagram what you want out to actually be, and you just write the code to do it. And so you're not, the computer's doing the memory burden, so you don't have to. Right. And so you get these issues where you start saying, well, I don't actually have to hold n-dimensional manifolds in my head. Right. I don't actually have to figure out how to break the manifolds down into sections to do it. I can just say this is the algorithm what we walk through the network with or whatever. I'm just trying to give it's like I do this all the time, Ron, but how can I cover this topic without being too nerdy and losing fucking everybody? And anyway, so you get this thing in math, you get this in every subject. Like I will bring up a certain sociologist that we both are aware of, who he thinks in those terms, right? He can't think outside of his sociological frame because he has no other frame to think with. I find it kind of interesting listening to Eric Weinstein, because he's got both math and a little bit of physics, and he can move between them. But he doesn't have the philosophical understanding to be able to look, in other words, the understanding, or maybe it's the computation, I'm not sure. He doesn't have that understanding to go back and say, well, what dimensions are you fucking with here? Which is what he's really doing. He can't reduce what he's talking about to non-mathematical terms. So I see these questions all the time where, you see someone like our Canadian
Gordon Peterson.
Peter Peterson, where he has to resort to mythological analogies or Jungian archetypes, even though he should know enough to be able to talk about it in behavioral terms. So, and that's because whenever he gets to the point where he should be talking in compound incentives, which is which is supply demand diagrams, he resorts to the narrative instead of what we would do, which is break it into interaction curves. So you get these people get stuck. Anyway, I thought it was freaking entertaining. Of course,
I was irritated by it. I'm like, oh golly, I'm.
Well,
done.
I mean, but you. I tell you, you have way too much patience to me, right? I can't imagine, right? But to me, it's like a problem I want to solve. It's not
right.
Right.
No, I get it.
I don't care about the person. Right. I mean,
I get that.
Right.
I get that. No, I'm just looking at the output as noxious, and it's like, okay, I'm not even going to try to fix that.
Yes.
Because it's not wanting to cooperate.
Well, it's sort of a challenge, right? I mean, it's like, okay, you don't want to cooperate, but I'm going to keep baiting you. Right. So that's one of the reasons I will inject a subtle insult like, well, you just don't understand. And this is why, whatever, is I'm baiting the person to stay in the conversation so that I can see if I can find it. Because, with people who are intellectually honest and capable, they eventually will get exhausted from trying to defend themselves, and they'll come over. Right. So you have to figure out if it's the person's just being morally objected, and they want to hold on to those morals, and you can tire out that piece of them and actually get the meaning across, or if the person's actually incapable, or if the person's just stubborn, right?
So wait, let's look at that. Let's diagram that out. So there's a failure. There's three outcomes, right? It's a Markov chain. You're going to change the state of the individual through conversation. Yes. Right. And then it's like, okay, you're going to exhaust them morally and cause them to go to outrage.
No, you're trying to exhaust their altruistic punishment. That's what you're really doing, is that when somebody's having a negative reaction to something you say, and they're basically having a moral reaction, you can actually exhaust it. It's the same way as like a dog trainer. I should have Brandon here would just agree to this, but when dogs are really aggressive, they're actually just afraid.
Right.
And you can exhaust the dog's fear.
Gets tired of being afraid. Well,
because they just realize that you're actually in control. They don't have to be, because that's what they try to do. Right? If they feel there's a lack of control, they become aggressive. to assert control because they want to control the situation because they don't feel it's under control. Well, people do the same thing in altruistic punishment. They're like, I'm going to try to establish control because this is out of control, right? This is something bad. The problem is they're just wrong a lot. It's like the dog's wrong. I'm not trying to hurt you. Things out of control. You're mistaken, right? And it's the same thing. People, dogs, like Brandon says, right? And so
Right.
you just have to exhaust the energy of fear. You have to exhaust the energy of altruistic punishment and get them to where you keep saying to them, I'm just saying the truth for these purposes.
It's okay.
And it's okay, right? And so it's just like dog training, except fucking people take way longer because they're way more stubborn.
Because they're what?
They're way more stubborn, right? The dog is like, he wants the pack to fit in, right? Right? He wants to feel safe in the pack. The person who wants this has got all this crap on their head. And so it just takes a while to exhaust them. So people used to say this to me forever, because I do it on Facebook a lot, is I would just take the time to exhaust somebody. I would say that the reason you can't win with these people is you're not willing to stay in the fight long enough. Right? It's like the heavyweight boxers, right? They get in there. Half the, what you want to do, of course, is if the other guy wants to be aggressive, you just wear him out.
Rope a dope.
You just wear them out. Well, it's the same thing with a lot of these people. And
Okay,
so
that's
it's easier to women. It's easier to women than men.
So that's one option that happens when we enter into these interactions.
Yeah.
Okay, you exhaust their altruistic punishment. And what's the second option?
Well, I don't know is that you have to determine because that's the moral objection. The other one is the malinvestment objection.
Okay.
And that's when, like this math guy, his personal self-worth is tied up in a malinvestment. It's sort of like it's one of
it's like a defense of his personal identity.
Correct. Right. And so
social capital.
Well, it's both, right? You have both reputation and identity. You have reputation, self-image, and identity. So you have those three things. So it's like your ability to your ability to understand yourself, your ability to value yourself, and your ability to obtain value that's been projected to others. So identity, self-worth, and status are three different things. Reputation and status. So you have those three things. So you can be running up against that, and that person is just defending it for the same reason the dog is, because they're afraid. Because what do all of us want? The universe is colliding, and we're afraid of it, right? We're afraid of the uncertainty. So the reason we have religion and mindfulness and all these disciplines and gain expertise and whatever is because we want to obtain mindfulness through confidence that we can interact with the world. So when you're threatening somebody's identity, it's
the competence. You're suggesting they're not competent as they think they are.
Well, and we're causing what you bring up all the time, which is a threat to their neural economy, which means that they might have to adapt, and that's fearful, because now you have to give up your certainty, which is what produces the mindfulness that gives you the sense of security.
So it goes to confidence.
Yeah. And the third dimension is when people are just not capable.
Okay, just incompetent.
Competent or unable. I don't know. So both. And so you realize that some people can't identify the patterns. And in some cases, I have no common experience to step into their shoes.
Right.
And because the distance is too far. Right. I can't get.
But at that point, you're just show respect and be respectful. And
yeah, that's my whole attitude is, are you intellectually honest? Okay. That's all that matters to me. I would say, this is, and one of the things you like about the people at the bottom is I'll often say, I don't know. The problem is what does Dutton call them? Midwits.
Midwits, okay.
The midwits they don't know they're midwits. And
No,
I
they
don't
have
love when
excessive
somebody calls me
confidence.
a midwit. I'm like, you're calling me a mid. I just think that's pretty fucking funny. But anyway,
What is there's so there this is interesting because it comes down to a confidence issue. So the excessive confidence is problematic.
yes.
And
And you
that's
teach me all the time about my skepticism. No, I don't have confidence. I'm not going to make that decision because I don't have. I'm arrogant and I'm confident, but it's only because it's actually the opposite. It's because I'm comfortable saying I don't fucking know. Or that might be true, but I can't be sure yet. Right? You know, I'm trying to provoke you into something, and it's not happening. It's not you're not playing this game. All right, fine.
hazard here.
Hazard here.
Hazard here. It's all very good.
All right. So does that, so you had three, you wanted to ask, something you liked there about those
So
three.
it's like how do you parse it out? Like when you're interacting with someone, it's going to break into these parse
Right.
options of what can happen, and then it's like, okay, now you tailor your response based on each one of those three, and it's like that's
And that's probably the male view. What do I do with the female view? The female moral is the same. It's way harder to deal with women on the self-image thing. And it's not so bad to deal with women on the incompetence thing. Women will usually back off and exit the conversation before men will. Because
right.
A man will eventually, some men will eventually say, I understand what you mean, I just don't like it or disagree.
It's like well, nobody asked if you liked it.
Well, I mean, I don't like a lot of the stuff I find out either. I mean, I would like my happy little Christian Protestant world, right, to be true. My idyllic Arthurian legend frame to
right.
to be correct, and it's not, and I don't like it, but I don't get to determine reality. I just get to determine how I react to it.
That's right.
And as far as, and if whenever I can, I'm going to act like I'm in my Arthurian
Whenever
space,
possible.
whatever possible. And if I have to get out of that, well, then I'll do what's necessary. So with the women, they'll usually won't stay in as long. They'll usually attack you faster. Personally, I mean, they'll almost always just attack you. They'll exit the conversation or distract from the conversation easier, and they'll almost never admit that they were wrong.
So if they attack you, then do you exhaust that?
Yeah,
you just let them attack you until they run out of steam.
Well, that's why I said they'll leave the conversation always, because they realize you can't. Because I when I play the King of the Hill games, I say it's a very simple strategy. Whenever, just figure out, you got to figure out what the central problem is. Whenever they insult you, insult them back and then restate the central thesis. Right? Whenever they argue with you, falsify it and then restate the central thesis. Right? It's a stupidly simple algorithm, right? It's just, you just repeat and repeat and repeat, because what you're really doing is exhausting the dog's emotion. That's all you're doing. Right? And the problem is, exhausting a man's emotion is easier than exhausting women's. And so women will run away because they can't accept correction. Whereas the guys they'll reluctantly, I don't want to mention names, but there's people out there in public, right, who I've had this process with, that they just like, I just choose to disagree. Fine. Right? All right.
And that's okay.
That's okay. Just stop lying. Don't lie, cheat, and steal, and whatever, right? It just, if you want to disagree, I'm okay with disagreeing, because now we can at least communicate. right? I could say he disagrees, he doesn't want to do that, therefore that option isn't available.
That's right.
But maybe this option is. We could still cooperate if we disagree. Well, it doesn't
That's
mean
right.
we always cooperate, but we may be able to find shared means despite different ends.
That's
So
right.
the problem is if somebody's won't play that, if you can't get to, okay, I understand, I do understand it, I understand, I don't like it, right? And I don't prefer it, so I disagree to like it, prefer it, and frame it that way. Okay, fine. But at least now I can negotiate with you on
Mhm.
something, or maybe I can find some way to give you what you want and you can give me what I want, and we can both, so we can cooperate on means despite different ends. But you know, that's the problem with the female, the cognitively female frame is it's you get very few women who are intellectually honest.
Well, that's responsibility avoidance.
Of course.
I
And when you
just,
find them, of
it
course,
wasn't for you.
every guy loves them. You know, the few women that are like that, every guy just, you know, it's like, oh God, can I have one of these, please? Right? Can I please have a rational woman? Anyway. What were you just going to bring up?
I was just saying, well, I didn't say that for you, Curt. It was for the audience, of course.
You didn't say what for me. You said
Responsibility avoidance.
yes. Yes. Well, wasn't see? Isn't that a thing you didn't want to know? I didn't want to know.
It's like this. It's like what's funny is just like, okay, the first time you hear it, and then you're like, over time you're like, oh my Lord. Now it's like, it's not whether or not responsibility avoidance, but how is it manifesting in this case?
Right.
Oh,
It's always you just I can't remember how many people I've had. I know some people that just doesn't click. So you say, well, all sex differences in behavior on the female side can be reduced to evasion of responsibility for the commons. Right? And all differences in the male side can be responsibility for the commons. Right? It's that's so any female behavior that's odd to you is just her evasion of responsibility. Because responsibility puts you in the place of accountability, and accountability puts you under threat. So women are going to avoid threat at all times.
Wait, here's a question. So this is the extreme feminine of the males, right? Are they taking responsibility for the commons in a feminine way?
That's a brilliant question. I knew you were going the minute you started talking. And I'm like, they are.
That's how it looks to me, and I'm like,
God damn, that was
it's a
brilliant,
peculiar index point, because that's why they are like they are. They're masculine, but an extreme feminine version of them.
Well, I mean, there's guys that are all
sure
that are I don't care. It's all about me. I'm just there are those, right?
Right.
But there is a solid distribution.
Some chunk of them inside that distribution, right?
Right. I mean, how are you going to argue with like the Peter Thiels of the world? I mean, he's gay, but I mean, he's on the responsibility axis. He's over there with you and me. So that's very interesting. That was a really brilliant insight, Brad. That was a great question to ask.
Thank you very much.
I think that one's going to stick with you for a while. Because now, you know, that's various. Because that's why
plug into a processor in the back of your mind.
That's why I like them. It's why I tend to like I don't have a problem with gay men. No. Unless they're hitting on me, which I find really creepy.
All right.
Interesting. Wow, there's a lot of thinking to be done there.
Right.
Wow, that's a very interesting subject. But anyway, so did you want to know that the fundamental difference in behavior between sexes is women's irresponsibility for the commons? Did you want to know that? I didn't want to know that. I didn't want to know that.
No, it's like you were something you'd rather be unconscious of.
Yes, exactly. You know, to the fact that women don't even know they're lying. Like men, we know we're lying, you know, because we all lie for one thing. So women don't even know. It's so bizarre to me.
Why?
I thought I almost had you say something there. You had something bubbling and it didn't come out, and I was trying.
It's like this,
guessing on that part.
the famous question is, why do men lie to women? And it's like,
What a dumb question.
it's a silly question.
Why do men lie to women, and why do women so easily magically think about men? In other words, engage in magical thinking about men. Those two things, I mean, they're obvious when you say one, it's not so obvious. But when you look at the both of them do it, it's so obvious. Female magical thinking, male lying. It's like nature says we gotta have some. Nature doing it's compensating for human rationality.
That's right. It's like, yeah, forget it. Just forget it. It's the irrational function that's going to occur.
It's just hysterical.
It does. Wait, it doesn't have to meet your standards of rationality, right?
No. Jesus.
That's funny, right there.
So you've been writing long form now.
Yep.
And you seem to, well, first of all, you're freaking great at it, but you seem to be having fun with it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just a matter of like, this is a funny thing. I wrote a 200-page book before I met you, maybe.
Yeah.
And I quit writing it because I was learning too much about.
Yeah.
History. And it's like, okay, I just stopped. And I'm like, but it's written in an extremely inflated style.
Yep.
And what's interesting is the long form that I've been writing is that information in a scientific pattern.
Yes.
Because it's like because I can distill it down into the causality, and then it's just measuring it out.
Yes.
And it makes sense, and it's not arguable.
That's right.
And that's quite interesting because it's the same information.
So again, I'm only saying this so that we can help the audience double down on this, is that we can give you the means by which to describe your thoughts in science.
Right, and not sound crazy.
And not sound crazy.
Even to the people who prefer not to believe it.
Well, I mean, the problem is when things are really loaded, it provokes your mistrust.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas when things are analytic, it's easy to say they're in other words value neutral. It's just a description, and so it's much easier to get through it, whether you agree with it or not.
Right.
So, what else this week was on your sort of agenda?
Well, I wrote one today that was on this thing, which is like that occurred to me this week, which I was just watching the news, and someone asked me this on a Twitter feed that was they were looking at the bio-Leninists running our country, and the question was, can't they get a better script writer? Because it's so obvious what they're doing. It's like so clownish, and it's like obvious and in your face. And I go, no, it's necessary to it looks to me like a psychological operation that is intentionally showcasing the bad, who's in charge, and highlighting the good who are being oppressed. And it's written in comic book format so the slowest kids can change their state and we can have a unified country on the other side. And it looks like that's pointing to Mr. Trump. And it's like, that makes me suspicious of Mr. Trump a little bit, because it's like he looks like he's preferred by some elite that is going to emerge.
Yeah, he's not preferred by an elite. Is the elite.
Say that again?
Well, I mean, he's basically threatening the elites.
There's got to be people behind him.
You find them or him?
Behind him.
Well, I have some insight into that, and it's mostly him. It's amazing how much it's him. He has a lot of people to talk to him,
Hmm.
right? But
See, I was gonna try to find this quote by Yuri Bezmenov, because Bezmenov said something like this. It's like things will get so bad that you'll be thankful for the alternative that's offered. And I call this the Weimar solution, which is how it happened in 1923. And it's like, and it may be undesired because they don't control both sides of the polarity, the financial elites.
well, I don't I remember the left just doubles down on the same thing every time. So they just use incrementalism, agitprop, GSSRM,
Yes.
because if they state what they actually want, we'd hang them. So when I look at like Trump, I don't know what Trump said yesterday. You know, I don't follow any of this stuff, right? Unless it pops up in a news clip, right? He's said this something, I'm like, that was fucking genius. Right. And I'm like, you know, like we just don't produce people with that level of skill anymore. And he is amazing at what he does. It's just unbelievable. I mean, if that guy told us to march on Washington tomorrow, the place would be torn to pieces in 50 days. Right. And because it's just like he's just got it. That's why they're terrified of him. It's because they're trying to protect all their rents, all their free riding, all their corruption.
That's right.
And they've justified it. No, I think you and I differ. You and I and some conservatives are on the anti-war thing, and I'm not. Trump is not. Trump is holding the middle ground, which is say I would just stop it, but he's not saying he's anti-war. He's saying he will stop.
No, I think that's the right approach. That's the right approach, because I'm not anti-war either. You got to stop it.
Yeah.
Because it's like you just, it can be stopped. And then,
but he's not afraid because he's the same.
Yeah.
He understands power like Putin understands power, right? I mean,
no, it's real. It's not. We have to be nice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also he has enough information to know what reality is, right? And he's not trying to make a bunch of quivering little ladies feel secure. He's like, no, it's going to work out this way, and I'm going to go do this. Putin's going to do that.
Right.
You know how Trump is. He'll find a way to make Putin look okay.
It'll be a deal.
Well, it'll be a deal. He'll find a way to make Putin look okay. He'll do a deal because that's what Trump does. He does win-win deals. He'll look for a win-win deal to make that, and it'll be over. And you know, what is it going to look like?
I don't care.
I don't fucking know. I know Ukraine's they'll never give up Crimea strategically. But they will give up. I can see them giving up the provinces. If that would probably work out. What Russia would probably like is to get Crimea and not the provinces. But I can't see that happen. But anyway, there's probably something that's going to happen along those lines, and Trump would solve it in a fucking week. Because I know what he would say to them, which was like, "You got nothing. We know you got nothing. If you got nothing, I'm just gonna make you all go away." And you got if it doesn't mean, and you got to think how Putin thinks. It means the end of Russia.
Right.
He's not too good. So that's the only thing. Aside from that, I just like I keep hearing stuff out of his mouth. Now the Indian guy is saying smart shit too. So
Yep.
you know, I was kind of disappointed in DeSantis how badly he managed.
I ignored him.
What?
I just ignored him. It's just like he's disappeared.
He's a great governor. He could be governor for 50 fucking years if he wants to. Right? I mean, he's a great governor. Why is he going to be president when he clearly doesn't got the
Chops.
Who's the guy? It was the guy from Massachusetts that rode around in the tank. Caucus, was that his name?
That's who it was.
That
was rude. That was rude, even conjuring that image in my mind.
I was like, you're what? You know, dude, you're a great governor. You are not a president.
Hmm.
See, what is this with McDonald? What is what I mean, why does he still why hasn't he resigned? I mean, that was twice now he's had a public episode.
Oh my, that was just stunning. It's like really, it's like zombie land up there in DC. They've got these senators that are unfit, seemingly unfit.
I mean, I'm not too fond of the younger generation, but I mean, you know, some of these guys are, if your faculties are not holding, I mean, here's the reality. Here's the reality. The staff does all the work. That's who does all the work. The politicians are the salespeople who raise the revenue on behalf of their staffs. So it's all the staff, right? So when you got a guy like McConnell, his staff is actually doing all the work, right? He shows up, press the button. So to some degree, you in the Senate specifically, you're going to be a puppet. It works the same in the House, but it's way stronger in the Senate. So of course, and if you've been in the field and in the role in the Senate for that long, I mean, the number of tentacles you have out into the world is infinite. So you have a lot of people who like you there because they have access.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And every time you replace a person like that, you have to rebuild these networks.
Has to regrow, right? The network has to regrow.
So is the actual politician that important? Well, only insofar as he produces a good staff. It's almost the same thing as.
No, I would argue that is not exactly correct. That the issue is he's as good as the pathways that he's built, yes, to the connections that he's made and who he's connected to. And it's like, it looks to me like a lot of the elites that are connected in are obsolete.
Yes.
Because their paradigm is incorrect and based on lies.
They're looking at it, yeah. That's probably.
And so it's like it's rot trying to protect rot.
Yeah. Well, that's just what happens, right? I mean, you're going to get in any political order.
Well, it is. It's so the rent seekers are maintaining those pipes.
The world needs our reforms, dude. The country needs them.
I know. I'm trying to get you done, brother.
All right. So anything else we got for this week? It must be something else.
That was pretty good.
All right. So what I'd like to do is end this one and end our chat for today. I want to get a fresh cup of coffee.
Oh,
start our working session. Is that all right?
May I first ask the audience to do a few things, such as hit like, hit the alarm bell, and hit subscribe. I had to do it in a different order just because they can leave the messages below, but I had to do it in a different order so that they continue to pay attention.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. I feel like I'm behind in uploading. I might be. I'm not sure.
I think so.
I've been not. I was kind of out of it, sick for a few days there, so a week there. Anyway, so all right, we'll see. This is Brad and Curt on Saturday, September 2nd. This is our chat session, and join us for our working session if you're interested.
Here it comes.